Before his secret was revealed, no gate could stop Samson. His strength was so great, even the ground began to crumble beneath him. Samson walked forward as the massive gates slowly gave way before him. With one mighty heave, the giant gates broke apart behind him. The guards froze in fear as Samson walked through the shattered gates. With impossible strength, Samson lifted the entire city gate onto his shoulders. With the gates torn from their hinges, Samson marched away from the city in triumph. The guards watched in stunned silence as Samson carried the massive gates up the mountainside. He left the gates on the hilltop, a reminder that Samson's strength came from God. Samson knew his incredible strength was a gift, but he did not realize how easily it could be lost. Then Samson met Delilah, and for the first time, strength alone would not be enough. Delilah was clever and beautiful, and she was determined to discover Samson's secret. The leaders of the Philistines offered Delilah a fortune in silver to discover the source of Samson's power. Night after night, as Samson rested, Delilah waited for the perfect moment to uncover the secret of his strength. With gentle words and quiet questions, Delilah tried to uncover Samson's greatest secret. "What is the secret of your strength?" she whispered. Samson laughed and answered playfully, never realizing Delilah's questions were part of a dangerous plan. While he slept, Delilah tied his hands with thick ropes to see if his story was true. When he woke, he did not even strain. He simply flexed his forearms, and the ropes snapped like dry twigs. The soldiers hiding in the shadows scrambled backward, hitting the walls in their haste to escape his reach. Samson looked at the broken cords on the floor and laughed, believing no one could ever take away his strength. Delilah acted hurt, telling Samson that if he truly loved her, he would not keep secrets from her. Delilah patiently continued her plan, determined to uncover the secret Samson was hiding. Little by little, Delilah's words began to wear down Samson's heart. Samson's heart began to weaken as Delilah continued begging him to reveal the truth. At last, Samson began to trust Delilah with the secret he had guarded for so long. Looking into Delilah's eyes, Samson decided to tell her everything, believing he had finally found true love. Samson never imagined the silver before him was part of Delilah's betrayal. Delilah stayed close to Samson, waiting for the moment he would reveal everything. Samson trusted Delilah completely, never seeing the danger hidden behind her questions. The laughter gone from his eyes, and spoke the truth. His strength had been connected to his hair since birth. Samson's uncut hair had been a sign of God's promise. Trusting Delilah completely, Samson revealed the secret. As he finished speaking, his eyes grew heavy with sleep. That night, with overwhelming exhaustion, Samson drifted into a deep sleep. While Samson slept, Delilah quietly called for the men waiting in secret. With the blade in her hand, Delilah prepared to take away the one thing that made Samson strong. One by one, Samson's hair fell to the floor as his great strength began to slip away. Delilah did not wait. She cried out for the soldiers, knowing that Samson was finally defenseless. Samson bolted upright, ready for a fight, but for the first time in his life, he felt weak. Suddenly, Samson realized the strength God had given him was gone. He tried to stand, but his knees buckled beneath him as soldiers suddenly flooded into the room. They swarmed him before he could find his footing, their hands pinning his shoulders and neck. Samson fought back, but the strength he once had was gone. Bronze chains snapped tightly around his wrists. The heavy chains dug into Samson's skin as cold iron pressed painfully against his face. A sudden, searing pain blinded Samson, and at last, he stopped fighting, the world turning to absolute darkness. The guards dragged him across the threshold. His feet scraped across the rough ground as the soldiers dragged him toward the prison in Gaza. Months passed within the dark stone prison walls of Gaza, as Samson sat alone in silence. The Philistines led Samson through the temple, mocking the man who had once terrified their armies. Broken and humbled, Samson lifted his heart to God one final time. Standing between the massive pillars, Samson prayed for God to give him strength once more. Samson stood still, his head bowed. Then, with the strength God returned to him, he pushed against the towering pillars. Tears filled Samson's eyes as he felt God's strength return one final time. Once again, Samson stood with the strength that had once made nations fear him. He locked his fingers into the cracks of the stone and pushed against the massive pillars with all his might. The ground trembled as Samson cried out and pushed with every ounce of strength he had left. The massive pillars began to crack beneath the strength God had restored to Samson. The towering pillars split apart as the great temple began to collapse around them. Samson's story reminds us that God never stops listening to those who turn back to him, and every gift he gives should be used wisely.